Partnered by Times Influence.
Given the diversity of the Indian demographic, classifying our consumers is challenging at best. But the Market Research Society of India is changing the face of market research by offering the industry a voice. We spoke to the Secretary of MRSI, Manish Makhijani. Here are the highlights. So, given how culturally and socio-economically nuanced the Indian demographic is, how challenging is it to conduct market research in this environment?
I think to say that India is a diverse country and rich in its diversity is an understatement. Every 100 kilometers, the language and the dialect changes and the cuisine changes. Doing research in such a diverse environment is quite challenging in itself. The other challenge that India offers is geographical diversity. So we've got about 7,000 cities in India, and we've got about 600,000 villages in the country spread all across the geography. That offers a huge challenge. But these are not new challenges. These are the challenges that have existed for a while, and experts have found a way to find representative sample. The problem that is coming more and more now often is that the market context is changing so rapidly because of the urbanization and because of technology coming in, and people are doing things very differently than before. So therefore the baseline studies and market understanding have to be done at far more regular intervals than we ever had to do before.
Well, to help put it into context, in your everyday role at Hindustan Unilever, for example, what role does market research play in everyday decision making?
Hindustan Unilever has been a marketing or a data-driven organization for decades. I think our role is not just to provide insights and research report to the organization. Our job is essentially to bring consumer centricity. It stems from the firm belief really that you can't be a good marketeer unless you understand your consumers intimately, which means that each and every marketing person has to be insightful, just like each and every insight manager has to understand marketing. So marketing and research therefore operates like two sides of the same coin, and they don't work in silos anymore.
So your role at Hindustan Unilever aside, you of course also serve as the Secretary of the Market Research Society of India. How do the buyers and sellers of research services benefit from this affiliation?
So Market Research Society of India is an organization that brings all the researchers and the insight professionals in the country together. But equally importantly, if not more, is that being part of the managing committee of MRSI and being a secretary, it allows me to shape the agenda for the industry far more than before. What are the new methods that we should bring in? How do we use technology, for example? How do we bring analytics into the research industry? How do we attract new talent?
Well, now that we've understood the complexities of the Indian consumer, we know that you've worked both domestically and internationally in varying market research environments. What have been some of the key differentiators in your view?
I think because of the culture and perhaps because of our education system as well, we Indians tend to be very technical in our thinking. We love our methodologies, we love our techniques, and we love having a technical conversation. But when I look at some of the Western countries in particular, I think they tend to be better storytellers. So those are some of the differences. Obviously, you need both of them to do the right job, but it's a balance that needs to be struck perhaps a little better in different parts of the world.
Switching gears a bit to new age market research. Through the lens of a market research professional, what do you consider to be the most promising technologies that have the potential to change the face of market research?
Technology, I think, is no longer a tail that's wagging the dog. It's become the mainstay of the industry, and for the right reasons. If you try to do market research and surveys in an offline mode, then you may or may not necessarily get the right insights.
Absolutely.
You have to be online with the consumers. You have to be part of the chatter. You have to be part of the conversation and engage with consumers in that mode to observe the right behavior and understand what's going on there. Another big shift that's coming in is in the form of artificial intelligence. With the exponential rise of the processing power of computers, you can now analyze the data at a far faster speed, and you can analyze a lot more data than before. And with things like machine learning and natural language processing, it is possible for you to look at vast amounts of structured and unstructured data, which means the emphasis is going a lot more now on not just the data collection. We've done data collection for decades, but the emphasis is also shifting now on how do I process that information at a very fast speed and make it available to the decision makers in the right form at the point of decision. And that's something which is possible to do today because of technology.
Well, to put some facts and figures around the market research industry, in 2015, the global combined revenue from the industry exceeded $45 billion. For the next generation that may be watching, What sort of career opportunities stem from that?
The career opportunities in market research industry are massive. So if I look at simply in terms of data collection, to people who analyze the data, to people who service the clients, or do the storytelling. So there are opportunities that exist in all the fields. I think increasingly with the machines and artificial intelligence taking over a lot of data collection and processing, what you need is the ability of the people to interpret and tell the story. Also, it doesn't mean that the job of the analyst disappears. In fact, the job of analyst has become more specialized as a data scientist. Because machines don't learn on their own. That's an opportunity that exists which perhaps never existed before.
Well, putting on your MRSI hat for a moment, we've come to understand that many market research professionals stumble into this field accidentally, if you will. What do you make of that, and how do you think the trend will evolve in the future?
Well, that's a right observation. I think people do stumble into this industry accidentally rather than necessarily by choice. But the reality is that market research tends to be more invisible function, in the sense that we tend to operate more behind the scenes, and we sort of give inspiration and provocation to the business to take the right decisions. As part of MRSI or as part of one of the industry leaders in an organization like HUL, I think it's our job to give the right perspective to the fresh talent coming in, particularly in the industry, and say, this is what the opportunities are and this is what you can do. Because the ability to add value is immense.
And now we offer you a 360-degree perspective on the changing face of market research. You'll hear from everyone, from agencies to enterprises, and from brand strategists to the feet on street. Have a look.
India is not a homogeneous country. It's a very heterogeneous country, not only in terms of the languages that are spoken, the food that is eaten, the mindsets that exist between east, west, north, south, etc., but also the sort of attitudes and beliefs as you go down the pop strata.
India is a very unique market because it's so complex and it's so heterogeneous. Market research activity also becomes a very challenging business.
So what started out 30 years ago as a body of users and suppliers of research now also has the ecosystem around it.
Today, like compared to 30 years ago, the sheer number of products, services, ideas, campaigns, messages, the things that consumers have to contend with have increased exponentially.
Market research matters because the business cannot take decisions blindly.
You end up spending so much of money into a new product development, new advertising creation and so on and so forth. And if you do not conduct research, you may have gone with your gut feel or somebody's gut feel. In case it does not match, then you have a problem.
Unless you understand your market and your consumers well, you'll never be able to point your efforts or your resources to the right direction.
The products that we use, the services that we use, all that comes as a result of the efforts gone into market research.
Current day and age, where you're talking of data integration across various types of data sources, in research, we can't still be stuck to saying that qualitative and quantitative are two fundamentally different schools. It just doesn't matter. What matters to the client is you're able to answer their question.
Everything starts from what's the problem that you're trying to solve, or what's the need that you're trying to fulfill.
And what is measured can then be managed and then monetized. So the basis of the amount any brand will spend is all dependent on market research.
The business that we are in is about understanding human behavior.
We are one of the largest exporters of thought leaders into the global market research community.
So people look at market research as more of a data collection function. They don't understand that market research is much more in interpretation, and it's a very creative function.
See, most market research organizations are fairly flat. You can become, in my view, a managing director of a market research company if you're bright in 10 years.
Market research is a profession that allows you perfection because the quality of the work that you do is so much in your hands.
So we earlier had multiple shackles which used to hold the market research industry very tight. These were the shackles of time and location.
Clients are looking for is double the insights at half the cost and half the time. It's one big relevance challenge.
People talk about brands, people talk about services, and you've got to sift that data out. So that is a major challenge I think that we are still grappling with in the market research industry.
When you look at research, you're talking to people. And when you talk to people, you have the ethical right to make sure that their privacy is maintained.
Data privacy is at the center of all market research philosophy and thinking.
It's not market research which is at loggerheads with the whole data privacy issue, it's the way you do market research. I really think the discipline is where both the parties actually gain value from each other.
And there are severe data privacy rules that are coming in place, and if we don't get ourselves armed up, then we might lose access to this data completely.
For me, market research always resides on the principle of opt-in. When you talk to consumers, they also value that.
Now we certainly see an exponential integration of technology coming into market research across all aspects.
Our organization itself, with the use of data analytics, with the use of our customer care centers, etc., I think market research in our organization is now always on.
If you ask anybody, do you want to do formal structured market research, then the first pushback is that no, it's too expensive, I don't want to invest that kind of money. The point is that market research has a huge variation in the number of techniques, in the kind of types of research that you can do.
There is semiotics, there's design thinking, there is ethnography where you go and observe people, there is what is called netnography.
Market research is a very underestimated field. In fact, it is like an engine which actually runs the entire industry, and I think that's really where MRSI really helps.
MRSI is bringing in a certain structure and method in doing the business. It is providing a certain kind of a standardization stamp.
When we look at the MRSI, one is the ethical professional excellence that we want to kind of embark on. But the other fundamental role that MRSI plays as a body is disseminating information.
We also work together to raise the profile of the market research profession in the country.
MRSI has always led the charge in the market research industry. So it ensures that all kinds of practices that the market research industry follows are always in line with the code of conduct.
When you are going to an MRSI affiliated agency, you can be assured of quality data, quality interviewing, and quality ethics.
I think what is important is to be able to predict what are the changes that are happening to consumers in society. And for that, market research has to be at the forefront.
Given that MRSI comprises of clients, market research professionals from the larger organizations as well as from some of the smaller boutique organizations or specialized organizations, I think it's in a unique position to really form what I would call bridges of understanding.
What we need is governments, big data collectors and institutions like MRSI to come together and create policies, processes, systems to really manage this new data flow.
I think there is also a non-commercial aspect to it, which being that when you are part of the MRSI or when you are affiliated with the MRSI, you are able to influence the very industry you are part of.
MRSI as an institution can actually bring these people together so that the clients can convey their own changing needs and demands. The agencies can convey their own delivery challenges and constraints and actually help the industry grow rather than just be alive and kicking.
It's time for a short break, but on the other side, our special feature on the changing face of market research continues. Stay with us.
Regardless of what changes with technology or time, the fact that market research is one of the most effective decision-making tools available still is a constant.
Welcome back to our special feature on the changing face of market research. To glean more insights into what the future of market research has to offer, And we spoke to the president of this industry body, Praveen Shekhar, to understand how. Market research is as much an art as a science. But what I'd like to understand is how has market research evolved as a professional discipline?
Research has been democratized. It has access across. Anybody who needs it can access it. But there's also a significant change in the way we conduct market research. Earlier, I used to ask for data. Now data is available everywhere. I need to know where to pick and choose.
Well, how have the skill sets of the market research professional changed, and what tools are now available at their disposal?
It's not just enough today for me to give you a set of reports saying this is what the research says. Go ahead and do what you want. Two, being an inside professional, working along with the client towards the set outcome. Right? Social media analytics, big data, text mining are three of the big changes, all tool-based changes that have come in, that are shifting the world of I ask and you tell, to you go ahead and talk and I will listen and pick whatever is applicable for my research. Regardless of what changes with technology or time, the fact that market research is one of the most effective decision-making tools available still is a constant.
Well, let's bring the conversation a bit closer to home. So aside from your role at CREA, you're of course president of the Market Research Society of India.
Right.
How would you describe its mission, its vision? What is it designed to achieve?
The Market Research Society of India has been on now close to 3 decades, is a non-profit body simply aimed and set up to propagate the cause of market research. And MRSI is the only association in India that is liaising with corporates, with the government, with any individual who falls into the wider bracket of research and analytics and insights.
But help us understand, who are all of the various stakeholders in this MRSI ecosystem?
The very core is that member of the general public who answers and provides responses to specific queries. The informant is the core stakeholder, and the code of conduct, MRSI's activities, everything works towards protecting the cause of this key important stakeholder. And then you have buyers of research who could be advertising companies, manufacturing companies, media companies. You have the agencies and then the entire field and support staff. And I will need to mention the newer stakeholders who are coming in, which is the entire world of analytics, artificial intelligence, and the blockchain providers who all deal with data.
Well, all of these various stakeholders naturally have competing interests. That said, how do you get them all to follow and abide to a single code of conduct?
Now, because there are disparate players and stakeholders here, MRSI came out with a code of conduct that all members of MRSI and anybody involved in research have to abide by. Now, simply put, what is it? It addresses the core, which is the respondent and the informant. It is protection of the privacy of the individual respondent who provides the responses, and two, it is permission based. If I ask you to participate in a survey, I tell you what is the objective, ask for your permission, guarantee that your personally identifiable information does not leave my association, and the data that is presented is at an aggregate level, which in no way can that be looped back into you. And when I say I collect information from you, it is only and solely for the purpose of market research, not for direct marketing, not for lead generation, none of that.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the market research industry seems to have witnessed a lot more collaboration in recent years. In parallel, have you also witnessed a consolidation in the industry?
Let me let you in on an open secret, open inside the community but outside. India is one of the largest exporters of market research professionals. That tells you a bit more about the rigor that we have. There are so many social non-profit organizations in India, and MRSI has shortlisted a few of them and thrown open a challenge for the younger researcher of India, inviting them to look at the research brief, because each of these non-profit associations has a specific research need. We're calling it the community program. It's our way of giving back to the society. And therefore, who grows? As a research agency, if I work with several of these technology players, my knowledge improves. What happens to the buyer? They end up working with multiple suppliers, picking and choosing what each one has a specialty for.
Well, let's talk about MRSI's global affiliations with ESOMA, for example, and others. Right? How do you sort of circumvent the cultural nuances that come into play and techniques that vary by geography in the context of market research?
Right. You mentioned ESOMA, which is the Global Association for Market Research. They have a section that's focused on local associations. By local, I mean India is a local association when the globe is compared. Now, your question was specific to how do we handle cultural differences, how do we ensure what comes in through webinars, through information sessions, and by inviting a whole lot of those speakers to come and participate here, not just for our annual conference, but also for our monthly meetups. You call it local, global, it doesn't matter with the population moving so much. We really need to know what are the cultural nuances, because that has to be fed back into the questionnaire design, into the sampling design to address the buyer's specific objective.
Now, sir, you mentioned many of the MRSI members in a more traditional context would be considered competitors. How do you incentivize them? How do you encourage them to push the boundaries of market research and achieve excellence?
MRSI is a catalyst there. We don't need to push. We just need to facilitate and provide the platform and make sure that there is interference, positive interference. Now, let me give you an example of an initiative called the MRSI Connect. We pick all the technology innovations that happen, anything to do with data, and have a dating session for our members, for them to just find out where is the world heading to. So we are bringing in an external virus deliberately to propagate this kind of collaboration and growth. It's one of the things that's been running for 5 years now. The Datamatics Dr. Lalit Kanodia Award is given for the technology innovation for that year. It's a nomination process, there's a jury that is put in place. Yes, we reward one of our own, but if we don't do that, who else is going to do it?
So today, if we had to crystallize market research in a single sentence, we'd perhaps say it's what connects the dots between consumer behavior and business strategy. But what does the future of market research look like?
The world of market research is changing. The way we look at market research, it is changing. Let me talk about the researcher. The researcher needs to talk to the technologist, who needs to talk to the design person, who needs to talk to a storyteller, who can look into the past, look at the future that the tool throws up, and come out with a story that the buyer or the research commissioner can look into as an insight. They are significant stakeholders in the entire research journey, because research is a key part of decision making, Pooja.
The market research industry has witnessed and weathered the winds of change. And the Market Research Society of India has navigated these winds while continuing to steer the industry towards increasingly sophisticated market research methodologies that ultimately protect the interests of the end consumer. By facilitating the exchange of best practices in the business of consumer behavior, MRSI is uniting the country's leading market research professionals on a single platform and changing the face and the future of market research in the process.
Partnered by Times Influence.